The first guy on this list, and coming in 15th overall, is a member of the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame, and in 1983 he finished runner-up in the Cy Young Award voting, second only to Philadelphia Philly John Denny. In 1982, Mario Soto led the National League with a whip that was just a whisker over one base runner per inning, and he had an ERA of 2.79. In 1983, he led the league with 18 complete games, and he had a 2.70 ERA. On May 12th of 1984, Mario Soto had a no-hitter with 2 outs in the top of the 9th inning. Instead of getting that last out, he gave up a solo home run to St. Louis Cardinal outfielder George Hendrick, which tied the game at 1. Thankfully for Soto, the Reds scored a run in the bottom of the 9th to give him a 2-1 victory. For the decade, Soto had 94 victories with a 3.378 ERA. He had 70 complete games, which included 12 shutouts. He struck out over 1,300 batters, and his whip for the entire decade was a very low 1.163. Number 14 on this list started his major league career by being the New York Mets' second-round draft pick in 1976. In 1986, he led the National League with 5 shutouts, and he was named the National League Cy Young Award winner. The Mets traded Mike Scott to the Astros in 1982, and it was there that he learned to throw his devastating split-fingered fastball. So dominating was his 1986 season that he led the league in ERA, innings pitched, strikeouts per 9 innings, and strikeouts to walks ratio. Scott won games 1 and 4 of the 1986 National League Championship Series with an ERA for those 2 games of .5, giving up just 8 hits and 1 walk in 18 innings of play. However, the Mets ended up winning that series in 6 games, and they considered Game 6 a must-win situation because otherwise they were going to face the seemingly unhittable Mike Scott in Game 7. In 1989, Mike Scott won a career-high 20 games with a 3.10 ERA and finished second in Cy Young voting behind San Francisco Giant Mark Davis. For the decade, Scott won 114 games with 20 shutouts and an ERA of 3.42. At number 13, we have our first American leaguer on the list. This guy, though not in the 1980s, was the 1978 American League Cy Young Award winner. And then in 1985, he led the league with 22 victories and finished second in Cy Young voting behind Kansas City Royal Bret Saberhagen. Despite that the New York Yankees nearly traded Ron Guidry twice during his career, he did spend his entire career pitching in New York Yankee pinstripes. In the 1980s, Guidry won 5 Gold Gloves, and he pitched his team to victory 111 times. For the entire length of the decade, his ERA was under 3.3. In 1983, Guidry led the league with 21 complete games. And just to put that in perspective a little bit, in all of baseball last year, in 2024, there were a grand total of 26 complete games. He was a 4-time All-Star that helped the Yankees to World Series championships in both 1977 and 1978. Ron Guidry's 1978 pitching season is considered by many to be the greatest pitching season in New York Yankees history. He won 25 games that year versus only 3 losses, which set the record for the highest winning percentage for any pitcher ever with 20 or more victories. The 248 strikeouts that he had that season ranked second all-time in New York Yankees franchise history. He also led the league that year with a 1.74 ERA. He led the league with 9 shutouts, and he also led the league with his whip of .946. The Yankees retired Guidry's number 49, and there's a plaque in Yankee Stadium, Monuments Park, dedicated to Ron Guidry. Number 12 on this list, in his 18 years in the major leagues, never won the Cy Young Award, but he finished in the top 5 of voting 5 times. And he is a 3-time World Series champion with 3 different teams. In 1983, Jack Morris led the American League with 293 innings pitched. And to put that in perspective, in 2024, the league leader had 208 innings pitched, and only 2 other pitchers in all of baseball last year had more than 200 innings pitched. With the exception of the strike-shortened 1981 season in which Jack Morris won 14 games, he won 15 or more games every season from 1980 through 1988, and during 2 of those seasons he won 20 games or more. In 1984, Jack Morris's 19 victories and then 3 additional victories during that season's playoff run helped the Detroit Tigers defeat the San Diego Padres 4-1 to win that season's World Series championship. In 1991, now pitching with the Minnesota Twins, Jack Morris would go 4-0 in the postseason, helping the Twins win that season's World Series championship by defeating the Atlanta Braves. The very next season, Jack Morris would win 21 games, this time with the Toronto Blue Jays, who would go on to help Jack Morris win his 2nd consecutive World Series and his 3rd career World Series, again against the Atlanta Braves. During the 1980s, no pitcher would have more than Jack Morris's 162 victories, and his more than 1,600 strikeouts for the decade ranks 3rd amongst all 1980s pitchers. At number 11, and the 3rd consecutive American League pitcher on this list, we have the very first Mexican-born pitcher to win 20 games in the American League. His major league career didn't begin until 1985, but that season Milwaukee Brewer pitcher Teddy Higuera won 15 games with an ERA of under 4, and he finished 2nd in that season's Rookie of the Year voting behind only Chicago White Sox Ozzie Guillen. In 1986, Higuera won 20 games with 15 complete games and an ERA of 2.79, and he finished 2nd in that season's Cy Young Award voting behind only Boston Red Sox Roger Clemens. Because Higuera's career started in the middle of the 1980s, he was only able to pitch 5 seasons during the decade, but in that brief period of time, he won 78 games versus only 44 losses, and he had an ERA of 3.28, and his WHIP was 1.172. Unfortunately, Higuera was not able to keep his career rolling into the 1990s. He had a lot of injury problems. He had back surgery. He had several ankle sprains. He had rotator cuff surgery, and that forced him into a relatively early retirement. Higuera is on the Brewers Wall of Fame, and he is a member of the Mexican Professional Baseball Hall of Fame. Number 10 on this 1980s list was also included in my 1970s Best Pitchers video. He, over the course of his 24-year career, won 4 Cy Young Awards, and he had 329 victories. Steve Carlton won 2 Cy Young Awards in the 1970s, and despite the fact that his baseball pitching talents dropped off quickly in the early 1980s, he was still able to win the Cy Young Award in both 1980 and 1982. In 1980, Carlton led the league with 24 victories. He led the league with 304 innings pitched, and he led the league with 286 strikeouts. In the 1981 strike-shortened season, Carlton was able to win 13 games, and he finished 3rd in that season's Cy Young Award voting. In 1982, Carlton again led the league in victories, this time with 23. He led the league again in innings pitched. He led the league again in strikeouts, and at the age of 38, he won his 4th career Cy Young Award. In 1983, Carlton was still able to win 15 games, and he, again, despite the fact that he was 39 years old, still led the league in innings pitched, but it was at this point in his career that his age started to catch up with him. Despite the 1980s being the tail end of Steve Carlton's career, he not only won those 2 Cy Young Awards, but he had 114 victories. His 1,400 strikeouts ranked 6th overall for the decade, and he had 54 complete games. Carlton was one of the greatest pitchers of all time. His 329 victories ranks him 11th on the all-time win list, and his 4,136 strikeouts ranks him 4th on the all-time strikeout list. Filling the 9th spot is a man that may have been overlooked by many of us, in part because in his 12-year Major League career, he had 5 stops in 4 different cities, and also in part because his greatest season of his career was overshadowed by a man named Dwight Gooden. John Tudor is the last Major League pitcher to have recorded 10 shutouts in a single season, and he did it 40 years ago in 1985. While the rest of the world, including me, was watching Dwight Gooden put together one of the greatest pitching seasons in Major League history, John Tudor quietly, beginning in June, put together a stretch of 20 victories versus only 1 loss, and during that span, his ERA was 1.37. On September 11th of that season, Tudor ran into a matchup with Gooden himself, and the two of them locked into a duel that resulted in a 0-0 scoreless tie after 9 innings. Gooden was replaced in the 10th inning by Jesse Orozco, who quickly gave up a run. Tudor came out to pitch the 10th inning, quickly retired the side, and picked up the 1-0 3-hit complete game victory. Tudor's pitching that season led the Cardinals into the playoffs, and they defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers in the National League Championship Series. In the World Series, Tudor pitched great in Game 1. He pitched even better in Game 4, which was a shutout over the Kansas City Royals. And he again was a starting pitcher in Game 7. But unfortunately, it was probably the worst pitching performance of the year for Tudor. Kansas City won the game, I think it was 11-0, and the Royals went on to win that year's World Series. In the 1980s, Tudor won 104 games, and he had an ERA of 3.13 and earned him spot in the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. Number 8 on this list is the Toronto Blue Jays franchise record holder for complete games, innings pitched, and strikeouts. Dave Stieb, despite only pitching for 17 innings during his college career and being named an All-American as an outfielder, was drafted in 1978 by the Toronto Blue Jays in hopes of turning him into a full-time starting pitcher. Stieb went on to be a 7-time All-Star, and by 1982 he was one of the premier pitchers in the American League. From 1982 to 1985, Stieb won 64 games with an ERA of 2.91 and 52 complete games. In those 4 seasons, his whip was 1.154, and he averaged 270 innings pitched per season. For the decade, Stieb won 140 games, which trailed only Jack Morris, and his ERA for the decade was a very respectable 3.31. When it came to throwing no-hitters, Dave Stieb is probably the most unluckiest pitcher I have ever heard of. In 1985, he took a no-hitter into the 9th inning, only to give up 2 consecutive home runs and was pulled out of the game before he recorded a single out during the 9th inning. It gets much worse for Dave Stieb regarding his no-hit bid. On September 24th of 1988 against Cleveland, he was 1 strike away from throwing a no-hitter. He had 2 outs and a 2-2 count on Julio Franco before Julio Franco got a base hit and reached first base safely. It keeps going. In his very next outing, 6 days later, this time against the Baltimore Orioles, the same exact thing happened. He was 1 pitch away from throwing a no-hitter. This time, Jim Traber recorded a hit on a 2-out 2-2 pitch. It just keeps going. On August 4th, 1989, Stieb was not only just 1 out away from throwing a no-hitter, he was 1 out away from a perfect game. The 27th batter, center fielder Roberto Kelly of the New York Yankees, ended the perfect game attempt with a 2-out double to left field. On September 2nd, 1990, Steve was 1 out away from a no-hitter. Jerry Brown up to bat, and he lined an out to right field. And Steve finally recorded his first, and to this day, the Toronto Blue Jays' only no-hitter in franchise history. The 7th best pitcher of the 1980s won a World Series championship in 1981 with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he won another World Series championship in 1989, this time with the Oakland Athletics. Only 2 pitchers in the 1980s had more victories than Bob Welch's, 137, and only 4 pitchers had more than his 1,457 strikeouts. Welch got the decade off to a great start in May of 1980 when he would pitch a one-hitter, and that season he would go on to win 14 games with an ERA of 3.29. Welch pitched over 2,000 innings in the 1980s, and his ERA for the decade was 3.21. Welch's best season was actually 1990. He won 27 games that year. He had an ERA of 2.95, and he was named that season's American League Cy Young Award winner. At number 6, and I love this guy, in 1982, he was a 19th round draft pick. He would go on to be a 2-time 20-game winner, a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. In 1985, he would not only win a World Series championship, he would be the World Series MVP. During that 1985 season, Bret Saberhagen won 20 games with a 2.87 ERA. He led the league in WHIP at 1.058, and he won his first Cy Young Award. Saberhagen's best season was in 1989 when he led the league with 23 victories. He led the league with a 2.16 ERA. He had 12 complete games, 262 innings pitched, and a career low WHIP of 0.961, and he was rewarded with his second career Cy Young Award. Despite only playing for 7 seasons during the 1980s, Saberhagen had 92 victories with an ERA of 3.23. And he has a second lowest WHIP for the decade among starting pitchers at 1.127. And Bret Saberhagen is a member of the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame. Number 5 goes to the first and so far only Major League pitcher to win both the Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young Award in his first season of play. Fernando Valenzuela. He not only won both of those 2 awards that season, but he won 3 games in the postseason and helped the Dodgers win that 1981 season's World Series championship. Fernando won his first 8 starts his rookie year, 5 of them by complete game shutouts. He finished that was a strike-shortened season. He finished that season with 13 victories. He led the league with 11 complete games. He led the league with 8 shutouts. He led the league with 192 innings pitched, and he led the league with 180 strikeouts. In Fernando's first 6 seasons, he won 97 games with an ERA of under 3 and made the All-Star game in each of those seasons. His best season during those 6 seasons was probably 1986 when he led the league with 21 victories, including 20 complete games, and he had an ERA of 3.14. For the decade, his 128 victories ranks 4th amongst all 1980s pitchers, and his over 1,600 strikeouts ranks him 2nd from the 1980s, trailing only behind this guy, Nolan Ryan. And speaking of Nolan Ryan, coming in at number 4, and despite having more than 2,000 innings pitched for the decade, he is the only pitcher during the decade to have more strikeouts than innings pitched. Nolan Ryan is also the only player in the 1980s to have over 2,000 strikeouts during the decade, and he had nearly 2,200. As in the 1970s, Nolan Ryan had the misfortune of playing for a mostly lackluster team during the decade of the 1980s. Despite that, he was able to record 122 victories, and his ERA of 3.14 was better than all but a few. In 1981, Nolan Ryan would lead the league in ERA at 1.69, and then he'd lead the league again in ERA in 1987 at 2.76. Ryan led the league in strikeouts 3 times during the 1980s, and that included 1989, when at the age of 42, he recorded over 300 strikeouts. Ryan started off the 1980s as baseball's only and first $1 million player, and on July 4th of 1980, he recorded his 3,000th career strikeout. On April 27th of 1983, Nolan Ryan would pass Walter Johnson and become the all-time strikeout leader. By July of 1985, Nolan Ryan would record his 4,000th strikeout, and in 1989, he would strike out Rickey Henderson for his 5,000th career strikeout. Ryan retired in September of 1993 after an injury. He was just 2 starts short of his planned retirement date. And Nolan Ryan retired and still holds 51 Major League career baseball records. The third man on this list, in 1986, won the American League Cy Young Award and the American League MVP Award. In 1987, he would repeat as the American League Cy Young Award winner. Roger Clemens. In the 1980s alone, which included only 6 seasons for him, he led the league twice in both victories, complete games, strikeouts per 9 innings, and strikeouts. On April 29th of 1986, pitching against the Seattle Mariners, Roger Clemens became the first pitcher in Major League history to strike out 20 batters in a 9-inning game. 10 years later, this time against the Detroit Tigers, in a 151-pitch performance, he would do it again. He was the only pitcher to strike out 20 batters in a 9-inning game, and he had done it twice. Now, since then, 3 other pitchers have struck out 20 batters in a game, but nobody else has yet done it twice. In Clemens' back-to-back Cy Young Award seasons of 1986 and 1987, he won a combined 44 games versus only 13 losses. He had 28 complete games, 8 shutouts, 494 strikeouts, and an ERA of 2.74. For the decade, Roger Clemens won 95 games with an ERA of 3.06. He struck out over 1,200 batters, and his whip of 1.136 ranks 3rd amongst all pitchers from the 1980s. Of course, Clemens' career is tainted with great controversy, but his 354 career victories, his career 3.12 ERA, over 4,600 strikeouts, and 7 Cy Young Awards should rank him amongst the best of the greatest pitchers in Major League history. Okay, we're down to number 2, and I have to apologize. My voice is starting to go. I need to talk to my script writer and cut down the number of words we're using in these videos. But anyway, at number 2, this man set in 1988, he set the Major League Baseball record for consecutive innings pitched without giving up a run. 59 consecutive innings. That same season of 1988, he was the National League Cy Young Award winner. He was the National League Championship Series MVP, and he was the World Series MVP. The second Dodger to finish in the top 5 of this list, Orel Hershiser. During a 5-year span in the 1980s, Orel Hershiser finished in the top 4 for Cy Young voting 4 times. His 1988 Cy Young award-winning season included a league-leading 24 victories, a league-leading 15 complete games, a league-leading 8 shutouts, and an ERA of 2.26. In the 1980s, Hershiser won 98 games, and his ERA of 2.69 was the second lowest amongst starting pitchers in the 1980s. His WHIP in the 1980s of 1.149 was fourth amongst all starting pitchers, and he was the league leader in innings pitched 3 different times during the 1980s. Hershiser finished his 18-year career with over 200 victories, and surprisingly to me, I'm not surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame, but I am surprised that he wasn't listed in the Los Angeles Dodgers Hall of Fame. The greatest pitcher of the 1980s reached that lofty pedestal in just 6 seasons. He was the 1984 Rookie of the Year. He was the 1985 National League Cy Young Award winner. Dr. K, also known as Dwight Gooden. He won an even 100 games during the 1980s, and he is the only pitcher on this list with less than 50 losses. He is also the only pitcher on this list with less than 40 losses. Gooden, of course, began his Major League Baseball career in 1984 at the young age of just 19. He won 17 games that year. He led the league in strikeouts with 276. He struck out 11.4 batters per 9 innings, which broke Sam McDowell's record for most strikeouts per 9 innings. In 1985, Gooden had one of the most eye-popping seasons in Major League Baseball history, and the most astounding part about those eye-popping numbers is that he was actually better than the numbers indicate. For instance, Gooden was 24-4 that season, and his 4 losses, his ERA was 2.89. On top of that, in September, he had 2 consecutive starts where he pitched 9 innings without giving up a single run in either game, and in both games, he got a no decision. That season, he led the league in wins. He led the league in ERA at 1.53. He also led the league with 16 complete games. He led the league with 268 strikeouts, and he also led the league with 276 innings pitched. He was rewarded that season by becoming the youngest pitcher ever at age 20 to win the Cy Young Award. Over the course of the decade, no starting pitcher had a lower ERA than Dwight Gooden's 2.64, and no starting pitcher had a lower WHIP than Dwight Gooden's 1.109. So other pitchers that could have been given honorable mention would include Rick Sutcliffe, who won 116 games during the 1980s. Bert Blyleven won 123 games. Charlie Hough, 128 games. I remember Dave Stewart having some very impressive seasons back in the day. And Mark Langston, I would have liked to have included him. I really liked that pitcher back in the day. Thankfully, I didn't include these guys because, like I said a few minutes ago, my voice is really going. Thanks for watching, everybody. The next video is going to be 1980s catchers. Hope to see you there.